Tonight on Let It Rip. They protested outside of the U.S. Supreme Court and were told to leave. They sat down on the street. When they didn't get up, they were arrested. The push to codify a right to abortion in federal law is on. The battle lines are drawn. Plus,
give us a fighting chance.
Their homes were flooded in June of last year, and they want the Water Authority to pay up. But the Great Lakes Water Authority says they won't pick up the tab. But why? We're talking to an expert and the attorney who's representing hundreds of residents. It is time now to Let It Rip. Joining us now is Dr. Douglas Carr, Oakland University professor and the director of the Master of Public Administration program. He's here to talk about how these settlements work and why the GLWA doesn't have to pay up. And Paul Doherty is a victim of the flooding himself, and his firm, Venn Johnson Law, is representing more than 600 clients in that class action lawsuit. And of course, our own Charlie Langton is with us as usual, legal analyst and anchor, who, as we joke about, but it's true, gets about 3.5 hours of sleep every night, but somehow manages to entertain and inform all of Metro Detroit. It's good to see all of you gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. And now let's start and get right to Let It Rip. We're going to begin a little bit with Dr. Carr here. You know, this is a tough one. Why is it that a municipality, or in this case, the Great Lakes Water Authority, doesn't have to pay up?
So that's a really good question. And so here we've got a couple of problems facing the community. First, we have a lot of residents who did have some very serious financial hardship from this flooding, from the sewage backing up. And the issue here is the capacity of the sewage system. I believe the report that was just released about a week ago reported that the sewage system was designed to handle about 3 1/3 inches of rain over a 24-hour period. We had close to double that. Over 6 inches of rain fell in a 24-hour period, overwhelming this. State law says that the Great Lakes Water Authority is not legally liable for these damages because they occurred as a result of just the system not having the capacity for the rain. The Great Lakes Water Authority did not fail to perform any maintenance. There's not any shortcoming on their end, but that because it was excess capacity, exceeding the capacity of the sewer system,
it got overwhelmed. And so,
right.
Paul, when you hear that right now, I see you kind of shaking your head, and I know you yourself had your own place flooded. But a law is a law, right? I mean, and it protects them.
Well, it does, unless there's a defect in the system. And we can show there were multiple defects in the system. Problems with Connor Creek and Frood date back many years. But if we segue just to 2016, there was a big storm in 2016. All 16 pumps at Connor Creek failed to turn on. It was a priming issue. They've known, let's just take it back 6 years. And to this day, those problems have not been fixed. During this flood, at best, 8 pumps turned on by 2 a.m. By 2 a.m., game was over. People were flooded. So if you look at the pump activation from really the morning before through 2 a.m., nothing came on.
But when you hear Dr. Carr talk about capacity, right, and the fact that this was an extraordinary event, an act of God in this case, right, much like perhaps someone would say hurricane force winds, something beyond what an insurance company would be liable to say, hey, we got to cover this. Why is this different for you?
This is different because, one, the rain occurred over 24 hours. It was spread out. 2, July 16th was the second big flood. Connor Creek, 7 pumps worked, and there was no widespread flooding in the Lower East Side or in the Grosse Pointes. It was spotty. That was 4 inches of rain in 12 hours. All right, we had 8 inches of rain in 24 hours the storms before. So when the pumps are working and keep up, they can handle the rain.
Charlie Langton, you were with a bunch of people out there just a couple days ago who have been victims as well. What did you tell them? You're a lawyer. Did you say, hey, you have a case here?
I want to see the GLWA people go tell a jury the fault of these floods is God. Blame God. Sue God, not us. And I don't think that's gonna fly very well. The other thing too is that 7 inches just didn't land in the Grosse Pointes and Jefferson Chalmers area. It was in Oakland County, Macomb County. I don't see a whole lot of flooding over there. So what happened there that didn't happen in Detroit and Grosse Pointe and Dearborn? That's a problem. I think there was a defect. Even their own report admitted there was a defect. Whether or not that is the proximate cause. Listen, there was a lot of rain, but that's why you have pumping stations. That's why you want to pump this stuff out when you have the big numbers. And I think that's going to be a problem for GLWA.
Dr. Carr, when you take a look at numbers, you mentioned that 3 inches plus, and now we're talking about closer to 7 inches that they actually got. These numbers matter when you're taking a look at a case like this, don't they?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And this case is going to, I think, turn quite a bit on the capacity of the system and was this an actual defect. If this was a defect, then state law says that the Water Authority is fiscally liable, that they do have to make these payments. If they're not liable, though, then that's a huge hindrance for the Water Authority being able to make payments for something that they don't have a liability for.
Shouldn't they have the capacity to take in 10 inches or more? We've had 10 inches. I mean, why would, let's have GLWA just have 2 inches then. Okay, over capacity, God did it again. That's not going to fly very well.
But does the act of God actually, when you say that you can't put your fingers up and say, hey, you can't just blame God, but act of God is written in the books, right, as something that is actually legally, when it comes to weather events, something that's contestable in court, isn't it, Dr. Carr?
Well, yeah, and this is an engineering question as far as what is the actual capacity of the system. When you design a sewage system, you have to design how much water are you planning for it to carry. You don't want an infinite capacity that's just a waste of resources. You have to figure out what that proper capacity is.
So move forward and take us through the next step here, Paul. You're talking to your clients each and every day. Many of them are watching this right now, more than 600 of these folks. When you're hearing people say, hey, you don't have a case here, what do you tell your clients?
Well, if every defendant I sued told me I didn't have a case, I would never have a case.
Sure.
What GLWA did with their announcement was just grandstanding, okay? It's got no bearing on the lawsuits we have filed and others have filed. It's the judge and ultimately the jury who will tell us whether they have to pay or not pay. Now, significantly, they claim or acknowledge 24,000 claims from one event. So this is going to be in the potentially hundreds of millions of dollars worth of liability for the damages GLWA caused. So it's going to be in the courtroom where we work this out, not in a press release.
Paul, you told me there were 16 pumps. 16. And how many were working on the day?
Well,
3 and then 5 at the most.
Yeah.
Okay, before they got their act together. That's not good policy. Jurors are not going to like that. And they have to admit it because it's in their own report. GLWA's got some problems. Now, the reality is that there's a lot of insurance, not a lot, but of the thousands of claims, some people did have insurance. So you're going to be going up against insurance companies that they will
Which
claim.
is a different battle.
Which is a little, it's the same, it's kind of the same thing, but there's some big money over here, $100 million in damages. A lot of it's been paid by insurance companies. And insurance companies, they know about fighting the cases. They want their money back.
So Dr. Carr, do you take a look at precedents in this case? And when you do, as someone who's a professor who teaches students about this, what are they going to have to do? They have to look at the books and the history books and say, when's the last time this happened when it was able to be handled?
Well, that's a good point. So as we look back and also look forward, this is not the only time we're going to have a really large rain. And if this is simply a maintenance failure, we can fix those issues and we won't have any flooding again. If this is an issue of the rainfall exceeding the capacity, that raises another question. What are we going to do next time? And I see 2 potential solutions here. One would be amending state law to allow the Water Authority to have that liability to, if the rainfall does exceed the capacity of the system.
Sure.
And then the financial solution there is water rates for everybody would go up a little bit to provide that insurance for everybody if you do get flooded out. The other more permanent solution would be to dig up sewer lines and put in new sewer lines. That's going to be really costly and increase water rates as well.
And good luck trying to get legislators and lawmakers to sit back and figure out that that's a good idea. In the meantime,
that's infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's all we've been talking about for the last several years. Midland dams that have failed.
Sure.
Sewers that fail. Pumps that fail, all this underground stuff that we can't see, that our legislatures, our government, our water departments should see and keep track of and repair as needed versus a disaster, flood thousands and thousands of residents, and then start talking about it. If you look at this GLWA report, I have a copy of it here, they had all the proposed fixes over the years, and they have a yes or no. Virtually all the infrastructure stuff, no, they haven't fixed. All the management changes, they have addressed. But the infrastructure, they haven't.
What is
That's
the purpose of government? What is the purpose of government? Is to protect the people in rains. When God decides God wants a lot of rain.
Right.
We want our government to protect us that way. And in this case, I think it failed. Listen, maybe there's a settlement, perhaps, but in this case, I think there's liability. Let a jury decide. We'll see.
If you're talking to someone who has a wet basement right now and still, obviously not maybe a year later, has damage from that wet basement or any kind of a cost that there have incurred, this is not a fun situation. But you're handling the cases, more than 600 of them right now with the Venn Johnson Law Firm. We thank you for your time today. Paul and Dr. Carr with Oakland University, thank you for sharing your perspective with us as well.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
When we come back, we're going to actually be talking about this fight to codify abortion at a federal level, abortion rights. We're going to be taking a look at that with our panel next. Back to Let It Rip, the fight to codify abortion rights all the way at the federal level. Well, that fight does continue. You saw the protests that happened this week where many lawmakers were arrested after sitting down in the middle of the streets. And now, of course, that topic does continue right here on this seat for Let It Rip. Joining us now is Genevieve Martin, Legislative Director of Right to Life Michigan. Also on the panel, Alexis Wiley, a former television reporter, now a strategic communication consultant. After working as Chief of Staff for Mayor Duggan, she started her own company, Moment Strategies. She's here to say that a woman's right to choose should be protected. And Rebecca Kiesling is an attorney and anti-abortion activist. The pro-life speaker was conceived in rape. She says we need to shine more light on the value of life. We're also joined by Representative Lori Pohutsky. She's from Michigan's 19th district. She believes every woman's reproductive right should be protected. And our own Charlie Langton is with us, as usual, to let it rip. Let's get right into it. And Representative, I'll begin with you. You know, this basically now falls at the state level. And here we go, where each and every state has autonomy to decide in some way how this should go. Isn't that where this should land anyways? Why is that a problem?
I think the most pressing issue that we've seen with the overturning of Roe v. Wade is that has been a federal right for nearly 50 years, and it was literally reversed in a matter of moments, you know? So there's basically a patchwork of laws all across the country. There are states that are attempting to interfere with the laws of other states. It's really just a logistical problem that is having very, very serious impacts when it comes to people trying to access basic health care.
Rebecca, the state's getting involved, muddling into the process here, making it difficult and throwing barbs into a plan. Is this just going to be a huge mess if we let the states handle it?
No, I mean, I think that the 14th Amendment should apply, where it says that no state shall deprive a person of their right to life without due process of law, and no state shall deny a person equal protection. I don't think it's an issue that should be left to the states, but here we are now, and you know, it'll be interesting because you'll have a number of states where there will be generations of children who will be born, and their stories will be irrefutable. I mean, like how I was protected prior to Roe versus Wade, the law protected me here in Michigan. And my birthday's tomorrow. It's good to be born. It's good to be alive. And we're going to see the difference in states where you have this, you know, sort of darkness, where you have, you know, death and destruction, and you'll have states where there'll be birth and there'll be life.
You know, you say that, and it's a romantic look at what could be of the future and an optimistic look at that. Alexis, when you hear that, do you feel any of that as well?
You know, I think about the 10-year-old girl in Ohio who was raped and had to cross state lines and to get an abortion. 10-year-old girl. When you think about, I think, the people who are going to be hurt, when you think about just, I mean, no longer having that right to choose, it's devastating. That's what I think about. And I just think that we have to get back to protecting health care. We have to get back to making sure that you can make the decisions that are right for you privately without the government getting in and telling you what you can and cannot do in this space with your body. I just think that we are in a very, very dark place right now.
Genevieve, when you hear about that 10-year-old girl who in this situation was put in that terrible dire strait, what goes through your heart and your mind?
What goes through my heart is who's the doggone rapist who got after this 10-year-old girl? Why are we not talking about that? All we're talking about is the fact that she couldn't go kill her child. What about the rapist? Had she gone through with this abortion with nobody knowing about it, she'd have been turned right back over to that guy who was living with her mother. Everybody thinking about that? Really? That's what we should be thinking about. We should be stopping these kinds of things from happening in the first place. instead of protecting the rapist by getting her over to another state, quietly aborting her child and sending her back to the rapist.
And her mom is defending the rapist, and there was a false report that the guy was 17 and the doctor made a false report. Now we find out that he was 27 and she was being sent home to live with him, which is what typically happens.
He's in jail though, right? He's been charged
because
with
of
rape.
detectives.
He has been.
and
Also, to
that's
say that
about
she
it.
was able to quietly access an abortion is a complete fabrication of what's happening. The entire country knows what this young girl had to go through, and they shouldn't. That should have been something that she was able to do without the eyes of the entire country or world being on her.
The Roe versus Wade decision being overturned, to me, why is it that the pro-life people don't have faith that a woman can make the decision that is best for her? Why is it that we need the government and we need a law that does not allow it's almost an insult to women in a way that they can't make the choice on their own.
Genevieve, you look surprised.
I am surprised because the pro-life movement is comprised of, oh, wait a minute, women.
Yes, you must have faith that women can make the right choice.
We have faith that those baby girls, the 42 baby girls that were killed today in the state of Michigan in an abortion, we have faith in them being alive. That's what we have faith in. What about the 42 baby girls?
You don't trust women, though. You don't trust women.
Your faith is personal, and I respect the ability. No, you're talking to a microbiologist. It's not based on science.
It is. They're a living human being.
An electrical impulse is not.
What was your point you were making?
So that's just the thing. Like, you have faith, and that's great. That is your right. No, please let me finish.
I'm talking about faith in something. I'm not talking about my personal faith, so let's not
But you
go
have
there.
faith in something, and it dictates how you view life and when life begins, and that is your right, and I respect your right. But that is not the same belief that everyone in this country shares.
I want to talk about this for a moment. Supreme Court liberal Justice Kagan recently said that there is a complete and utter disconnect between the Supreme Court and the will of the people. And when you look at not one, but two, sometimes three different polls that I can cite for you that indicate that the majority of Americans believe in the right to choose, the right to be able to choose.
Poll just came out, 72% say it should be banned after 15 weeks.
But one moment, just for one moment, what about this Supreme Court in their decision, the 6-3 majority, making a decision like this? Should they be in the business of legislating politics? Because that's what this is. This is a political
elected justices have been in the
minorities.
business in 1973 to thwart the laws of all 50 states. They foisted abortion on demand throughout all 9 months of pregnancy on every one of our states, stopping every law in this country.
But I think going back
Alexis,
to what Rupe is saying, you're absolutely right. People believe that this is a decision that a woman has the right to make herself. The polling is clear, and especially here in Michigan, which is why you see reproductive freedom got a record number of signatures, because people say the Supreme Court got this wrong, and Michigan has a shot at getting it right.
Rebecca,
and
what does that do to the Supreme Court? What does that do to the
Supreme
Supreme Court and the veracity of what they put out there and the trust that people have in this court? Where does that stand right now in your mind?
Well, who dies should not be a popularity contest. It should not be based upon who's popular. The law is there to protect minority groups, to protect the disenfranchised, including the preborn, including children like me who were conceived in rape, who are demonized.
What about if the life of the mother is at risk? Is that okay to have an abortion?
Well, every state has had a law. There's
so that's okay. That you're okay with that?
In your opinion.
Right? Is that okay?
Yeah,
what about the death penalty? Hold on. What about the death penalty? Is the death penalty okay? Are you okay with the death penalty?
I'm against the death penalty because you do not put innocent people to death. And there are too many innocent people who are on death row.
At least you're consistent.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And you know what? Interestingly, the Supreme Court said that rapists don't deserve the death penalty. And even child molesters don't deserve the death penalty. So the rapist of that 10-year-old is not going to die. He's going to get due process, and he won't be put to death.
But
the
in many
innocent
states,
baby was
they
put
want
to death.
to do away with abortion, yet they do have the death penalty. Ohio, I think, is one of them. So there's a little inconsistency there.
Let's talk about compromise for a moment. This is an interesting one. I mean, if you really think about where we stand right now, we have people on this very stage right now here on Let It Rip who are saying, hey, look, I believe in a woman's autonomy and a right to choose. On the other hand, you have to say, hey, I believe in the human life and the protection of that human life. Is there some kind of a compromise between these two anywhere? Are we missing something here?
Should we
or are
compromise on death?
Well, no, but can you
Well, I
compromise
think
on the way to handle this particular piece?
There
How do you
are a
do it?
lot of people who I know who are pro-choice who support the work of pregnancy resource centers because they feel like it gives women more of a choice, that women who are in a desperate situation, who really don't like abortion, if they had help, they would have the baby. There's people who feel like that gives them more of a choice, and they support the local
And
pregnancy
Representative,
centers.
we've seen an increase in the last few weeks in the number of these these hope centers opening up, especially in conservative states across the country. That's a good thing, right?
There are issues with pregnancy resource centers and crisis pregnancy centers. Namely, they are allowed to lie to patients. It is a well-known tactic that, particularly in states that have, this is complicated since the Dobbs decision, obviously, but in states where there is, a ban after 20 weeks or whatever the case may be, they will lie to patients and tell them that they are further along than they actually are so that they cannot access abortion. They also will just completely leave out the fact that abortion is a resource that these women could choose if they wanted to. If you are going to provide medical care, you need to be providing holistic medical care and making sure that they are aware of all of their options, whether they choose adoption or abortion.
Hope. They provide a place that feels like a safe place to go to, diapers, formula, and other things as well. It's not as though every single center could be making up this lie.
I mean, it is possible is the problem. And, I'm not debating, like, if someone is going to go through with a pregnancy and is going to have a child, then I want them to be getting every single resource that they can.
But our governor doesn't, because she just vetoed a bunch of money in the budget that would have gone to help finance these pregnancy centers.
Because they can also lie to patients.
Abortion clinics lie to patients. They were performing abortions on women who were miscarrying, where there was no beating heart, but they're getting money off of them.
That is a medical procedure.
Why do you think that is that the governor would decide to veto something that would provide this kind of help in the state of Michigan?
I think it goes back to what the state rep brought up. I mean, I think that there are some strong concerns about some of these centers. And I think that she acted on that because she's someone who's going to act on principle. And she's very, very much about making sure that healthcare decisions and that are protected, that women are able to make decisions that make sense for them. And I personally believe, I think that you just deserve a choice. Determine what makes sense for you, right? If it's going to a pregnancy resource center and you get your needs met, God bless you. If it's also saying that this isn't right for me, this isn't right for my body, God bless you too, right? I think that people need to be able to make the decisions that are right for them.
The governor apparently in this particular case vetoing that, not allowing that kind of funding to come in for centers. That's a problem or no?
I think the issue with most of the line items that were vetoed is it is making the assumption about abortion and adoption being an alternative to abortion. And the fact of the matter is it is not. Because if there is someone who does not feel that they are capable financially, physically, emotionally of being pregnant
Rebecca,
and delivering.
You have something more you want to say, and we're going to give you a chance to actually come right to you first because it's your birthday tomorrow. So we'll come to you first after this when we give all of our panel a chance to do some final thoughts. So final thoughts with our panel, talking about, of course, abortion and the ongoing battle. Rebecca, we'll go right to you.
Okay. Well, they received enough signatures to get a measure on the ballot to amend the Michigan Constitution. It would allow sex traffickers and child molesters to take your daughter for an abortion because it would abolish parental consent, no parental notification. So when you talk about, young rape victims, is that really what you want? This would be permanent. Be able to have a sex trafficker, child molester take your daughter to an abortion clinic. Parents aren't even told. That's in there, and they hide it. It's not even on their website. You want to know what's actually in it, you have to go to Ballotpedia. Is it?
Ballotpedia. That is a concern, Representative. Is that something that people at home should be concerned about?
It isn't. The consent statute that is being referenced, I want people to think about the situation where a minor would have to access abortion care and could not go to their parental figure for it, and instead would have to go to a judge to get a court order. That's not a hypothetical for me. A very dear friend of mine had to do that very thing as a minor. And I understand that, when we get around the idea of parental consent for healthcare, it's something that gives people pause, and that's good. But I want them to think about the situation where it is necessary for a minor to access an abortion without
I
consent.
only hopscotch to go to the opposing viewpoint for a moment, and we'll give you your chance for a final thought, Genevieve.
So are you telling the viewers that this would not abolish parental rights with regard to parental consent for abortion? Is that what you're saying?
I said very clearly what it does.
You said very clearly, which means it would abolish parental rights for parental consent for abortion. And now, more importantly than that, you really need to read the language. Charlie LaDuff had an op-ed yesterday, and what he said in there was the best I've read. It says, this looks like an infrastructure bill that was put together in a smoke-filled back room. It's word salad.
Genevieve, thank you. Alexis, go ahead. You have the last word here, the final thoughts.
Just cut through all the stuff you're hearing right now. Reproductive freedom is on the ballot in November. They got a record number of signatures because people believe in the right to choose here in Michigan. Let's show up and vote in November in support of it.
I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. When we talk about this very important topic, we leave it to women to discuss it with each other and with us, and of course the audience as well. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Let It Rip.